The opinions and statements made by the guests of the Success in Practice podcast are their own, and I do not endorse or accept responsibility for their positions. Any information given by myself or the guests is educational in intention and not to be taken as medical advice. If you choose to act on the content involved in the podcast, you do so at your own risk. Okay, everybody, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Success in Practice podcast. Today I'm joined by Adam Nicholson, having immersed himself in sports and navigating through numerous injuries as a young man. Adam cultivated a profound interest in anatomy and biomechanics, recognizing their integral role in healing and recovery. This curiosity led him to pursue osteopathy, culminating in the completion of the Masters in Osteopathy in 2008 over at the University of Western Sydney. Benefiting from collaborations with Sydney's esteemed osteopaths, Adam acquired an in-depth understanding of classical osteopathy and its traditions. Acknowledging the uniqueness of each body, he emphasizes individualized and patient-specific treatments. Adam is dedicated to addressing a diverse range of conditions with a primary focus on children, pregnancy-related issues, and both acute and chronic conditions. He's been successful at building a great family practice. In addition to his role as In-Touch Director and Principal Osteopath, Adam serves as a presenter and tutor for Osteopathic University students, a lecturer for community and allied health groups, and collaborates with local sports and dance organisations. Beyond his professional endeavours, Adam actively participates as a representative OzTag player in the local area. His interests extend to the NRL, and he cherishes moments spent with his wife Alicia and their young children Harper and Zave. Adam takes pride in his membership with Osteopathy Australia and really enjoys giving back to that professional association. Additionally, he actively contributes to the education and editorial committee, aiding osteopaths across Australia in their professional development, education, and promotional content. Adam, thanks for being on the podcast, buddy. We've been trying to get this done for a little while. We finally found a time where we both could do it. Thanks for being here.
I know, mate. Thank you for having me. What a privilege it is to be able to come on and have a yarn.
It is. It's good. It's good, kind of like just to sit and have a chat.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's nice to do it in person, maybe over a beer, but we try to keep it relaxed. And I keep people guessing as to what's in the Batman mug. But I had Gary Fryer on one day, and he got me onto the scotches while I was doing the podcasts. And sometimes they go for an hour or two, and then after about four glasses, your lips get a little bit numb.
I'm sitting in the clinic today. I might have a couple of little ones sitting in the fridge somewhere if it goes for a while. So
why not?
Don't worry, mate. I don't mind enjoying a little tipple every now and again.
Let's get started, buddy. As with other guests I've had, the listeners are really interested in the background of the guests. So I want to ask about your backstory, your time growing up, I'm assuming in Sydney. What led you to osteopathy? So give us that story.
Yeah, look, I can honestly say I had a great childhood growing up in southwest Sydney. Played a lot of sport. I played a fair bit of rugby league growing up. And I think with that, it helped me understand, success. We were pretty successful as a junior footy team. Spent a long time. Obviously made me understand the importance of working hard and teamwork and camaraderie and things like that. So I had good results at an early age, and I think it formed an element of toughness and grit. So I think that was really important for me in forming, sort of the person who I am today. We had some tough coaches, and those tough coaches were hard on us because they wanted an outcome. So as hard as it was at the time, I think having those tough coaches were formative for the type of person I am, and I'm ever so grateful for those people. I'm lucky enough to still treat one of my footy coaches, and we enjoy a good yarn every now and again. I had some leadership roles at school and sport. I think mainly because I could probably read people around me a little bit better, and I think I've been a pretty good communicator, and I think that's partially what's sort of helped me progress today. We played a lot of sport. League was the main one, and I think we played a fair bit of sport, like in our street as well. Um, so that was really cool in playing a fair bit of sport. We had a lot of camaraderie in the street growing up. The old school days where you actually would go outside and play sport, and
Mm.
what you did, you know, outside out the front was replicated on the sports field. It actually led to a lot of injuries, a lot of niggles. So I can say that I have suffered lots of like injuries, nothing overly dramatic. Um, probably the worst injury, again, leading into where I got, was a concussion at the age of 12. Weirdly enough, it didn't happen at footy, but it happened at a school camp. And I think going through that, albeit undiagnosed, it really rattled me at the time. So that was really, really formative in understanding how bad you can feel out of something like a concussion. Now that I know and I can review elements of my life, that really rattled me. So it was the end of year six going into year seven, and just I was lethargic. They thought I had all sort of different issues and conditions, and they all got ruled out. And everyone went, I don't know. But I actually copped a bump on the front of my head. I still have a calcification there now from it. It was that bad. But yeah, I think weirdly enough, those injuries, either as a kid or as an adult, every now and again, if you get a bump or a bruise or a broken rib, at least you can sort of put that into perspective and really understand what your patients have gone through when they do come in. So, as much as your injuries are a bad thing for me, I can reflect on them and really respect how they've helped me understand injuries, recovery, and healing. Going through prior to uni, I'd actually never seen an osteopath. So
Mm.
I find that really funny that I'd be intrigued to hear how many people actually saw an osteopath and were molded by the experience they had with them. I'd probably seen physios, but
Mm.
to be honest, I never got better. So I think that was pretty obvious at that time that by not getting better, I had to lean into something else. For me, I knew I wanted to get into some form of health or recovery, but I didn't know osteopathy existed.
Mm.
When I did lean into that, when I did actually have a look and read into what it was, and again for me, gosh, I graduated in 2008, and so you're probably thinking early 2000s. There wasn't a heap of information, but what I read about osteopathy is that I felt like it was really unique and it was very truthful. And this word holistic, there was a very holistic spin. And so I gravitated to that through that year 11 and 12 phase where you're like, what am I going to do um, in the world? So what I felt like I uncovered, it felt really good. The other good thing was UWS, where I graduated from, which is Western Sydney Uni now, was only 7 minutes from where I
Mm.
lived. So for me, when I read it, the distance was like, I've got to drive 7 minutes.
That's a no-brainer, mate.
Mate, it was absolute no brainer. So I was thrilled that I could lean into that. And I think I sort of explained, like, I think I have these serendipitous moments throughout my life, and I think enrolling into osteopathy was one of them, and it was kind of like I guess meant to be.
Mm.
Um,
I can share that experience with you. I'd never
yeah.
seen an osteopath before.
Oh, yeah.
I'd come straight out of high school into university. I really didn't know what it was, and I wasn't really quite sure what was happening.
Yeah.
Like you, I'd seen physios
Yeah.
growing up playing like a top end football or soccer.
Yeah.
Um, I would get injured. I'd have I'd have a hammy on the right, a calf on the right,
Mm,
a quad or a knee injury on the right, or
yeah.
my back would hurt on the right side. And eventually I said to the physio, and this was the physio out at the Valentine Sports Park where the New South Wales Soccer Federation was.
Okay.
And I'd say to him, I said, mate, there's something odd going on. This is me at 16 years old saying, there's something odd going on. I keep getting injured on my right side. I roll my right ankle, I get my right hammy, my right. And he's looked at me, he's gone, no, there's nothing I can see. Like, no, like, looking back now, I'm like, there's obviously a pattern there, right? I mean, I'm a left footer. I kick the ball with my left, so all the loading's going on my right side.
Sure.
So obviously you would just you could just pick that out. That's a no-brainer
Yeah.
today. But
Yeah.
he wasn't like a new grad or a young guy. It was like
Yeah.
a experienced physio, and he kind of looked at it and go, "Oh no, can't really pick anything there. I mean, it's just bad luck." I'm like, all right, didn't know much better than that, but yeah, I didn't get better with physio like you, and
Yeah.
there was a truth to osteopathy that I can concur with when I first found out about it, and that draws you in,
Yeah.
yeah, it puts up a mirror against you, and you kind of like you can't deny it, and when you can't deny something, it just draws you to it. So
Oh,
yeah.
it's so true. Look, I remember having like a severs heel type condition for like 2 or 3 years.
Mm.
And that limited how much sport I could play. I see it now. I don't have an issue really treating it, but I'm really passionate about getting kids back out on the field as soon as possible. So I treat a lot of kids, and maybe it's because I know how much I missed out in the field. I'm really passionate about getting them back out in the field or the dance floor or whatever it is. So yeah,
All
I
right.
actually
So you started UWS, I was assuming, 2003. You finished in
yeah
2008. So
2003.
just
Yes.
as I was finishing, you
Yep.
you, you had started.
Yeah.
And tell us about that. What was the first day of the first week? What was that like?
First day of the first week. Look, I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Mm,
To be honest, it was interesting, and I think a lot of them maybe it was interesting. I I don't remember much. I just meeting a good bunch of people
mm.
earlier on, but yeah, the first week I think yeah. First week, you're taking me way back now. I think they lent us straight into some practical stuff, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah,
And I think that was a good way to meet everyone and realize that we're going to be half naked
yeah,
through our course. That was pretty confronting.
yeah,
All right, everyone, could you just strip your gear off and
yeah. Get your
straight
gear
in?
off and
And
start walking up and down the hallway. Yeah.
yeah, so I honestly felt like that. I've spent half my university career probably half naked, and then that's just how it was. And you're
Mm.
always getting around, being treated, being worked on, being an example at the front of the class, whatever. So yeah, look back on it now. That's kind of funny.
I remember doing some guest lecturing over at UWS.
Oh yeah,
I'm just trying to think if you were in that class. It was a biomechanics class.
yeah,
Uh, I don't know if it was maybe later on, but it was like a second or third year group. I remember Luke Madden was, I think, in that class
yeah,
from memory. I don't know if you were
yeah,
in that class
yeah. That's
too.
the one.
That's
Yep.
the one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess you would have been there. There was a person who was teaching it who was, I think, Russian, but like a student, like a fourth or fifth year student.
Oh
Does that
yeah,
ring a bell?
yeah.
Yeah. There's a few
I
things
see
out of
the
that.
face. I
This
can't think
I'm
of the
I'm
name though.
talking now. This would be 2005 or six or something
Yep.
like that.
That's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, around that time.
Alexi.
That's it.
Alexi.
That's the
Yeah.
one.
Why does that
Yeah.
name come up? What was that you remember? Was that part of what you
That well,
taught?
that was I think it was a biomechanics tutorial that they got
Yeah,
me to
right.
come in and do a guest tut on
And
that.
what did you teach? It must have been fascinating because I could
W-
barely remember it.
well, I taught the osteopathic considerations in upper limb biomechanics.
Okay.
And so we discussed the principles and we talked about how the body regulates and we went through specific biomechanical patterns and
Oh, beauty.
and all that kind of stuff. There was some memorable things in there. I
Yeah.
remember I remember there was a bloke sitting in there who was a little bit tall and had just really bright red hair. I'm just trying to put a name on his
Yeah, no one can just
yeah,
hard to yeah.
trying to
Don't
remember
know.
who that was, but he just had bright red hair and but I can't
Bright
just
red
put a name on it.
face too.
Yeah,
Usually they
bright
go
red
hand
face,
in
some
hand.
freckles.
Yeah.
Um,
I know.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to take a quick moment to thank everyone for watching and listening to the podcast. If you have received value from this episode, the kindest thing you can do for me is to like, share, follow, and subscribe to the channel on whichever platform that you are listening on. If any of the conversations have resonated with you and you feel that I can help elevate your practice, you can find me at successinpractice.net. That is, the Success in Practice program can be found at successinpractice.net. The Success in Practice program is the signature program that takes a practitioner who may be struggling with retaining patients. They may not be certain about building effective treatment strategies, and they may feel somewhat anxious and doubtful about what they are going to do with a patient. And they are not really accelerating in the real world of private practice. It takes this practitioner and it turns their careers right around to the point where the patients have an effective diagnosis and a real treatment plan that they can take home. Patients are happy to book in multiple sessions with you and they are confident about your abilities. And more importantly, you now have direction and are confident about your own abilities. The program streamlines how you operate as a practitioner. Guys, you should have been taught this at university, but you weren't. You may have been practicing for the last few years thinking there has to be a better way. There has to be a more effective way of engaging with patients and getting them results. Well, there is. And this is what the program delivers. Go to successinpractice.net and check out the options available to you. See where I can help you easily grow your patient list and finally earn the rewarding income that you deserve. For all the information on how you can reach me personally, check out the show notes. Also in the show notes, you'll find a link to the chat transcripts from these podcasts. These are valuable and a wealth of information. I really hope that you're enjoying the podcast. Guys, leave a comment if there's any questions on this episode. And please, don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe to the channel. Now, back to the show. And that was a good experience. So you guys were a good bunch.
Yeah, no, we had a good bunch, and I think a lot of us, went on together and understood. I think a lot of us kept on. We were actually a big group. I feel like we were a big group of about 60 odd, and I feel like that was an anomaly that went through. I don't know why. I feel like it was an administrative anomaly that occurred, but it was a big group of good people. And good to catch up recently. I caught up with a few of them at the Osteopathy Australia conference recently and got to have a good yarn with them. So it's a long time between seeing them, but I hope they're all doing well.
Yeah, you always wish that. I got to
Yeah,
catch up with some of my old uni buddies over the weekend, actually, over in Melbourne, and it's just like you sit down and it's like you'd never left. I mean,
yeah,
most university students tend to spend 3 years, maybe 4 years with the same bunch of people. I
yeah,
think you get to that fifth year and you really kind of bond, you
yeah.
know.
Well,
So
yeah. Going back, I felt like we had to bond
a lot earlier.
mostly because I think there were components where we didn't. I didn't understand the landscape of osteopathy back then, but like I do now, but there was always this sense of, we were the outliers either of the university. There was always some sense of
Mm,
internal friction or tension, but you could never put your finger on it. And, meeting up with people again at the Osteopathy Australia conference and you're starting to put a few more dots together. There was a sense where we all had to sort of come together and get ourselves through because
mm,
it was actually, there was actually a time there and it was in '05 or '06 that we were going to lose our accreditation, I believe.
mm,
I could have it wrong, but it was like you'd done 2 years and then they were going to knock it on the head and say, look, it doesn't meet. Uh, I don't know I don't know who it was, but there was an element of the university was accredited to provide the osteopathy course, and either it wasn't meeting standards or guidelines or something like that. So
mm,
somehow it got through on the skin of its teeth because I remember sitting in there going, man, so what happens? I've done 2 years at uni and they could
mm,
potentially just cut us. So I'm sure someone else could fill us in on exactly that. But I remember that being a really scary time. Um, the other part I really have fond memories about, and I don't know if you got it or if you were lucky enough to teach in it, but we actually got pushed to the back of the university. So here we were away from these immense buildings
mm.
that looked really good in the uni, and they pushed us back to something that we named the chicken shed.
Yeah.
And that felt, that the uni kind of didn't want us there. It was, let's say, a good 400 meters away from the actual uni clinic itself. But there was this sense that we had this small portable. Why they couldn't fit us in any other room, I
Mm,
don't know. But considering how much we were paying in our hex, to be stuck in that chicken shed was kind of
mm,
like a good memory in a sense, but I don't know why the university, it actually made us feel like we were the outliers of the university. So I don't know why, but there was an element of friction that I don't know if it came from where it came from, or the uni and osteos, or it was the way that they could softly push osteopathy out of UWS. I think we were the second last year to go through, but
Mm.
there was always this sense of friction, and you could never put your finger on it.
And that brought you closer as a group, you think?
Mate, I think it brought us closer. I really do. I really
Yeah.
do. And yeah, I think that was an important part of building our character and who we are, and building some resilience. So
Yeah.
I thought it was a good thing. We had some marvelous teachers that came through,
Well,
and
sorry,
the
yeah.
ones,
Go
yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
No, like I just feel like there were some good ones there, and you could sense a really good, like an osteopathic spirit about them. They were
Mm.
always giving in their time. That was outside the lectures or the uni clinic or whatever, and I think that was a real bonus of knowing the types of people who were willing to give and continue to give. And I really now look at those people. They didn't have to give that extended amount of time that they did, but some of the beautiful conversations about osteopathy really resonated with me, and you could feel that those people or those osteopaths at the time had a real truth that they wanted to give out. Maybe that felt like a side to the university. You would have these side comments about how you would treat or present someone or a condition or whatever, but I felt like they're the people that took us to the side and told us a big bunch of stuff that perhaps we weren't going to get taught.
Mm.
So I, forever grateful for that. And if I ever have any other students or any other osteopaths through me, I will forever be grateful for the time. And I think that's an important part that I would take away from the uni.
So tell us more about that. Who were some of these people? Who were your early influences?
Oh gosh, who did we have? I felt like Suzanne McCleary was an absolute legend. Gosh, she always hung around, either in lectures or in the uni clinic. Um, who else do we have? Look, we ended up having a lot of lecturers that would come in for 4 to 6 weeks at a time. So they were sort of
Mm.
like these guest lecturers.
Who was teaching you technique, Adam?
Big bunch of people. I think Peter Green did some HVLA. I actually think Liz Howard came in and did some HVLA. I could be wrong.
Mm.
I haven't got the best memory, but Liz Howard would hang around and give us more. I'd be sending her email saying, "Sorry, I don't get this content. What are you talking about?" And we'd go backwards and
Mm.
forwards. Um, Uni clinic, and he's a good friend of mine now, George Stillian, would always spend a lot of time with patients. I actually remember this is where it was drawn. I was truly drawn to an indirect model of care when my dad actually took a big stumble down some stairs at a local gym. Like he come down from a first floor. Apparently, I don't know if it was hot or overwhelmed or tired or fatigued, but he decided to black out at the top of the stairs and tumble down. And dad went like a period of 6 months or a year with like a unilateral paresthesia down an arm, down a
Mm.
leg. He might have a stroke, you know, and I was concerned about him, but it was really nice to be able to again talk to these practitioners in uni clinic and be able to express, look, I've got a dad, I don't know what's going on. And the first time I got to witness, and George was trying to explain it or express it. He said, "Look, just bring him in. Just bring your dad into the uni clinic." And whether he was allowed to or not, I don't know. But he said, "Look, I want to treat your dad." And I was like, "No one wants to treat my dad. No one knows how to help him.
Mm.
His dad, like with unilateral symptoms, some soft weakness in his arm and leg. As I said, almost stroke-like." And I sat in one corner, and George held his head or down through his feet, something like that. I remember just sitting in the corner and going, "What's this witchcraft?" Almost. And the room just went dead still, mate. And I still get goosebumps thinking about it because Dad got up off the table and said, "I've lost all my pins and needles."
Mm.
Not much happened, and I thought, oh, it was just I was drawn to that then, that what I'd witnessed, that Dad said, I've been to all the specialists, neurologists, neurosurgeons. I don't know, nothing's wrong. We can't find anything.
Mm.
Brain's good, nerves are good, spine's intact. Get on your way, mate. But there was still something there that osteopathy could explain, and I think that's where I was kind of drawn to. So I always say, I still see George now, and I help him present on a few courses. But whenever I tell my dad, I'll say, Dad, I'm hanging out with George this weekend. We're going to go teach or do some stuff. And Dad always says, when you see George, tell him I said hi. And I'm like, Dad, George won't remember who you are. Like, you're one of 1,000 million, however many patients. He's not going to remember who you are. Anyway, so whenever I'm with George, I always open up with that. George do his thing, I do mine. I tell him the story about Dad. And I say, so George, Dad says to say hi, because it was a profound change for Dad.
Mm.
And so, again, I'm grateful for what that treatment did to my dad to leave him now where he doesn't have any symptoms at all, obviously. So again, that was a profound moment, and that was a time that he just gave his treatment that was of his own free will. He said, yeah, this sounds good, let's treat it. And like that, it was changed. So being able to treat, for me, being able to treat patients that are outliers in themselves, that get shunned from different professions, that try everything, and then they end up, and I feel like that osteopathy can help.
Yeah.
So again, that was probably a real pinnacle moment. Maybe I was in fourth year, but I felt like I had George. I felt like I did Saturdays, and I had George every Saturday. He'd ride his motorbike down and be freezing cold and
Great.
whatever. But the time that he gave me, and again, I love hanging out with him now and what he contributes in the cranial field and with pediatrics. And the stuff I've learned off him, I'll be forever grateful.
Well, tell me about some of the people that you worked with upon graduation. Like you said,
Yeah.
I mentioned in the introduction that you'd had the privilege of learning off some of Sydney's finest. Tell us about some of those people.
Look, I was very lucky. I was working in a bottle shop actually, and again,
Sydney's
I like.
finest there, definitely.
Oh,
There are a lot of
yeah,
Sydney's
that's where I
finest there.
studied. That's where I worked actually when I was studying in the bottle shop. But at the end of that fifth year, I had a call from Michael Solano, the great man, and again, the stuff that I've learnt from him. If nobody knows who Michael Solano is, you've probably been living in a cave. But I was grateful that he said, do you want to start with me? And I think I started with him for 3 days because I did have a passion that I wanted to start my own thing. So I started a clinic in a medical centre. So for 3 days, I'd go out to Bondi Junction, and learn really good forms of osteopathy, being able to treat people, being able to look at people, being able to communicate with people. There are a lot of levels that I probably didn't realise until now how much I did take away from a good mentor, and the value of having a good mentor is just so important. But I think the best thing I did was to be able to go and see and sit with him for 3 days, start my own clinic for 2 days. And I started in a medical center, so I didn't have the overheads of that. But we would go in, we would co-treat, we would probably use a majority of an indirect model. And I think Michael was really renowned, again, a bit like George, of just treating these patients that didn't have a proper diagnosis, that weren't going anywhere in their current forms of care, and they would end up there. So it really taught me how to use my hands and trust my hands, and to try and start treating people that didn't make sense. So the more I started helping or co-treating, I spent a lot of time co-treating, and again, I'm forever grateful, and I try and do that with my new graduates now. To be honest, I feel like that's just a way. It's a real safe way to be able to have two sets of hands on patients at the same time and learn. It takes a lot of pressure off you as a new grad, that's for sure. But then be able to palpate and feel the nuances of patients' tissues, and what it feels like for those tissues to change or express themselves. So that was really important, and I think foundational to learn to trust your hands to treat really difficult patients. And yeah, I just became good at treating patients that didn't fit somewhere.
Okay.
I was yeah super grateful for that.
I
But yeah, I
always,
felt like
yeah.
we're coming back to co-treatment though. Like I don't
Mm.
know how much co-treatment you did or how you decided was the best way to learn, but uh, we would go and co-treat patients, and I swear that you would feel all this stuff happen under your hands. And again, I didn't have the language for it. You could palpate it, and I still couldn't believe that perhaps I wasn't introduced to much of this at uni. And again, part of where I feel like I was maybe shortchanged at uni was the fact that the value of indirect model of care can do some amazing stuff. And it's not all I use, by the way. I use a variety of different stuff. But we would go back in, and I would want to run back into the room that they had, outside the patient and be laying there half asleep. And we'd leave the room, and I would just want to say, mate, what was that? What happened? I couldn't believe it. Did you feel this? Did you feel that? Did you? But what I learned is that we sometimes actually didn't say anything. And I think that was more, uh, as weird as that sounds, as someone who's trying to make sense of things, I felt like I'd ask some questions, be like, but we were just in awe of what could change in someone's body. So co-treating taught me those nuances. It taught me about the subtleties, but it taught just how good the body is at getting better.
Mm.
And I was just amazed by that. So a lot of what wasn't said was sometimes stronger, and sometimes there isn't words to explain stuff. And again, it's up to us to put words as to why people get better. But I feel like a lot of that might be the lost part of osteopathy that we need to bring back. And I
Mm.
feel like we can lean into that, especially when helping and teaching new graduates the nuances of care and treatment.
Definitely, definitely. I know what you're saying. And it's almost like all we really can measure is what we've done,
Yeah,
but we very rarely can measure what we haven't done and what the body's done,
yeah,
and so we're never really going to understand. We think it's a 50-50 partnership, but I think it's more like 90-10 on the body's behalf,
yeah,
like we're doing maybe 10% of the work and the body's doing 90% of the lifting.
yeah,
Um, and so, yeah, I get that. I understand where you're coming from. Talk to us about In Touch Health Co.
yeah.
You started your own practice, and then how did that
Mm,
evolve? What happened? Tell us about the genesis of that practice that you're running now. How did
yeah.
that start, and where are you at the moment?
Yeah, so look, we've got 17 practitioners and four staff. Uh, and that's slowly or quickly built in the last, say, 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I started initially when I was working with Michael, I started initially, renting a room in a medical center. Luckily, we had the doctors on board with us, and that helped build a bit of a patient load.
Okay.
Um, so I think that was a good balance at the time for me to be able to get mentorship, but also build my own clinic. And again, as my numbers build, I could respectfully still pull away from Michael's clinic. That was still an hour away from where I was working, maybe a little bit longer in traffic. So I still,
Mm.
there was still a fair bit of travel involved. So yeah, I learned to work, and again, from probably my sports background, uh, I learned to, and also from my dad. Like my dad worked long hours as well,
Mm-hmm.
but the element of just respecting that you have to put in work. It's not like you do uni and then you're all done and dusted, right? Like there were still hard hours to build
Yeah.
a good clientele. So I didn't work, 9 to 5. Like the days I was working and still do, now. Like, it was a 7 a.m. start. I'd wander in the door at 8:30.
Mm.
So again, I think building that patient load through good old hard work and face to face, and again that set me in good stead because by the time I was 5 years out, I'd done a lot of hours in helping people. So I think in terms of growing your practice, it's important that there are long hours and there are a lot of really hard things in front of you. And I think we've probably lost our grit a little bit these days in being able to build that patient load. But I'm happy with either wherever I've got that work ethic from, that was a foundation of really building where our clinic is at today.
Yeah, right. And so in terms of the actual though the beginning of the business and then how it's evolved, like you said that you started it out of a medical center, but then now you've got also, you said 17 practitioners. You don't go just from that to
Yeah,
that, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah,
so how did it all start? And then how did you gradually kind of expand it? Like,
yeah. It's a good
how did you
question.
find that?
I think what I realised is that osteopathy, as amazing as it is, we still have a scope of what we can do amazing, and then outside that we need help. And so outside of that, I think we added a naturopath.
Right.
I feel like then we started getting interest from massage therapists.
You sorry, cut
Um,
you off. Adam. You say we. Are you and your wife, your partner? You
yeah, my wife and I, right?
right?
And again, yeah, I'm glad you've pulled me up there, but when we refer to we, it's my wife and I, and
Okay.
again, she's the rock in it. Thanks
Yeah.
for that.
Well, I don't know. I
Because
mean, I don't know if you had like a mate or a business partner or something, but you were. I
no,
assume you're referring to
my
your
my
wife.
wife and I, and again, she's without her help, we don't have the success. So again, it's being able to relinquish a lot of those weirder tasks or tougher tasks.
Yeah.
I'm horrible with numbers. Like I do not get numbers. I have anxiety over numbers. For her,
Okay.
it's like numbers are her thing. She
Great.
can see the holes and cracks, and somehow she just gets a big bunch of putty and puts it all back together and makes it easier. So for me, that enabled me to be able to be more hands-on, do the clinical work, bring in mentors. Because eventually, I was hitting a point where I was so busy, I had to bring on other osteopaths.
Mm.
So yeah, again, like through some of the courses I think I did up in Byron, I reckon I've brought on about. I was trying to think before. I feel like I've brought on about 6 or 8 new graduates over the last say 16 years. Some have lasted up to 5 years, and I had one guy that lasted a day.
Yeah.
So it fluctuates, but I feel like we've been really successful in retaining our new graduates as well. So I think we built a business based upon working out where the realms of osteopathy ended. We brought on some psychologists. Who else have we brought on? Currently, we've got speech pathologists. We've brought on an acupuncturist. We've got two naturopaths with us. We've got 5 osteos. I feel like 5 osteos is pretty big in the Sydney market to have 5 osteos at your
In
clinic.
Sydney, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So again, we started working out that we needed to bring on more people to cover, obviously, more patients we were bringing on, but there was a bigger scope of healthcare in the mental health field, in the gut or food field. I feel like my naturopaths and nutritionists were able to take care of components that I cared about, but I couldn't eloquently elaborate well enough what it was that they needed to do. So yeah, it was important to diversify for the benefit of your patients,
Yeah.
and that took a lot of pressure off me as an osteopath. That once I hit a threshold of what I could treat, I could hand that over, and so we became really successful at being able to treat again more and more complex cases that had a wider variety of say causes, and I think that's where we've probably gained a reputation now of pretty much we can treat whatever we can treat anything here. And I feel like that feels like a really good spot to be in, is that no matter what comes through the door, someone in your clinic is going to have an idea, is going to have, and when we do, and we get together, and it might be in passing, it might be a formal sit down, but usually now we can combat most types of presentations, and that's a great feeling in practice. And I adore every single one of my practitioners that I work with. You know, there's no hierarchy, and that's the other thing, is sort of taking that ego out, thinking that just because, you know, you're the clinic director or whatever, that you have some super bloody importance there. You don't. And I think when you can sit down and listen to your patients well enough, you can listen to your practitioners well enough, like the universe steps in, and patients get better. And I'm really proud of that. And it takes a while. Again, I feel like, you know, my wife and I would say we're always, if we're always looking for a new practitioner, we will always go for the best person, you know, that people person, rather than the person who's got the best credentials. Or
Yeah.
because I feel like, you know, at the end of the day, we are people. We communicate with people, and if we can't communicate with people, if we can't listen to people, mate, like, we might as well forget it, pack up and go home. Because the end of the day, and wherever this comes from, it's like you listen long enough, and the patients will tell you the answers.
Yeah, definitely.
And so
Definitely.
it's a really nice dance that we walk every single day with our patients, and again, that's where all my practitioners are just really, really good people.
What are some of your challenges right now, Adam? What's the biggest obstacle right now? What gives you, I guess, where's your attention at the moment?
Yeah. I Every day is a challenge, mate. If you're fair income about business, and you're fair income about helping people, everything's a challenge. So I know that sounds like a bit of a cop out answer, but every day should be a bit of a wrestle. Um, so is it an exact issue? Is it a climate of where osteopathy sits? Is it a climate of where healthcare sits? Yeah, maybe there's some soft nuances around that, but I think everything should be difficult, or there should be challenges through your day or week or month, and it's
Give,
because you're just trying to better yourself, you're trying to
yeah.
better your clinic, and you're trying to better the people around you. So, um,
Mate, given the scale of your business, you've got 17 practitioners, you've got five
mm,
osteopaths. Um, it's kind of like when you live and you make a lot of money, and then you go and buy a fancy car and fancy clothes and a big house,
mm,
and you create this kind of big lifestyle that you're living. And then if you ever to go broke one day, people struggle because they can't maintain that lifestyle. Or if work goes really bad, or if something kind
mm,
of starts to pull back, they find it
yeah,
hard to really cut costs. And so for you, you've created a large practice. You know, you've got 17 different practitioners across
mm,
multiple fields, five osteopaths. Has has the I guess workforce shortages, has that been one of your biggest challenges to make sure that, you know, your engine keeps ticking over, and, you know, you don't kind of lose the volume in your practice that's allowed you to,
mm.
you know, practice the way you want to do? Like, are you having issues recruiting either osteopaths or other allied health, or,
Look, I
you
think
know,
we'd all love more osteopaths here in Sydney. It's super difficult, you know. Um, I am picky about the type of person I do get here, and I'm picky about the type of personality that it is. Again, it can take any new grad, as long as they're a good person. You can always teach them skills. But yeah, Sydney's a hard market for osteopaths. Do I try and like lever ourselves to be osteo heavy? I really want to, because I love it, and I want more osteopaths around us, and I want more in our area. I don't care. Like, I think we need more osteopathy. We can't get it, but I'll probably never leave my business to be so osteo heavy. Although I'm biased that way, so I need to be able to be open enough to, again, you know, take on other health professionals who have excellent skills and abilities, and personalities, and I think that's what I value the most. It's being able to diversify in all different directions, and it's organic. It's not pushed. It's these people. You know, I said to you earlier, it's like I feel like the universe kind of organised these people. Either they've been patients, or we've jumped on the phone with them, or they've been successful in another part of our area, and eventually we just get to a point where, you know, I ask if they want to come on board and be part of something special. So
yeah.
So, I don't feel like I feel like osteo. Yes, it's hard. Everyone else is a bit organic, um, and I feel like everyone's here for a while until a portion of their life has to change, and that's fine. I feel like we've got a big open ability to discuss all those things with our practitioners, and it's great.
Yeah, you've discussed collaboration and kind of you know having the ability to kind of take your patients to other areas that
Mm,
you may not
yeah,
kind of be at the top of. Talk to me about where you'd like to see, for example, like osteopathy go in terms of new areas of treatment and
yeah,
collaboration. Like, what would you like to see osteopaths maybe tackle that we haven't traditionally tackled before?
yeah. Look, I'm a bit old school, and maybe I was just taught by old school osteos, but I think we need to go back to our foundations, our founding principles. I think there's a lot of really good stuff that AT still did and developed and spoke about. I feel like I could be wrong, but I feel like that's being suppressed, um, either at uni. But yeah, I think I was talking to, I feel like I was having a conversation with Raymond Blaish from uni, another great guy, about the importance of learning about who we are and where we come from. And there's a ton of content on it. And it's incredible. Once you get absorbed into some of these students' books, there's answers in it that we didn't know existed. And they
Mm,
make it sound so simple. And they didn't reference anyone except for the anatomy and the wisdom of his body that we're working on. And their stand and deliver is just like, who writes this stuff without references? Like, it's incredible to read. So look, I would say go back rather than forward first. When you go back, I think it gives us a purpose and identity. I feel like that there's some really good stuff, and if you're ever lost and you're questioning if whether osteo is the right thing for you, I'd near guarantee that you haven't gone back to the start. And
mm.
I still haven't gone through it all. The content's dramatically huge.
Yeah, it's huge. It's
And
definitely
and
huge.
and I enjoy it in the little glimmers of time that I do have. I try and open up some text, but again, it's what drew me to osteopathy. It was true and it was honest, and it feels like it resonates. And perhaps that's what I lean into when you do have a difficult patient. Mate, AT still wrote a blueprint of how to get people better, and it sits there, but his name just doesn't get spoken enough.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm turning into an older grump about what we should be doing, but that I believe should be first.
Yeah, no, you're not. I had this conversation with Lisa Di Stefano over the weekend. I was quite grateful to go down and see her. John Marshall had put on um, a presentation with her. I think we
Yeah,
did uh, pediatrics and structural cranial.
yeah,
Um, and she takes a more of a structural approach to cranial versus the biodynamic approach.
yeah,
But we had this kind of conversation about AT still, and I made the point as in like, we don't get a lot of that. I know at the recent conference they had a historian out there, but
yeah,
we don't really want to know about AT still in terms of like being a relic of the past. He's actually quite he what he discussed is actually
yeah,
quite relevant, very,
correct.
very relevant for the present. And so we don't we're almost turning him into a museum artifact,
Yes,
and on the surface it might seem like, oh, it's great to learn about our past, but it's not that we want to learn about our past just so we could say, oh, like that's great, that's a good, we should do maybe a wax statue of him or something like that. That's not the point. The point is we need to understand the past because it actually has some things there that we could use now, and we can help our patients with. The
mm,
literature there is amazing, and I don't think we give it enough credit, and I don't think we 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 are allowing that into our educational facilities. So one of the things that I spoke to John Marshall about was that I questioned him. I'm like Lisa Di Stefano is the current author of Greenman's Principles of Manual Medicine. You know that textbook, right? The green
yeah,
one, Adam.
Yep.
It sits on the desk of every student of my generation, probably of your generation. And that was Philip Greenman. Now, Lisa studied with Philip. She was one of his students.
Yeah.
And Philip is probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 degrees separated from AT still, you know? And we had someone like Lisa come out and talk to us, and she was amazing. And I said to John, I said, John, why isn't she at the university here? Like she's over in Melbourne. This was in Melbourne. I said, there's RMIT and VU. You know, why are you bringing her here? Why haven't they said to her, look, you know, like and John does such a great job, and he organises these kind of facilities where he gets all these massage tables and puts them in, and people can kind of get practical application. I'm like, you've got a university full of treatment tables there. Why aren't
Yeah.
the universities letting you do this? Why aren't, they should be saying, hold on a sec, Lisa. And Lisa's the head of the School of Osteopathic Medicine at Michigan State University. So I had a chat to her on a podcast a few weeks back.
Yeah.
And you know, she's no lightweight in osteopathy. She's a
No.
professor.
Yep.
She's in the education system in America. She's head of a school. You'd think that the universities will be collaborating with somebody like Lisa and saying, hey, Lisa, come out and teach us what you have. So I don't know why that is not there. Is it, you know, I mean, I don't have answers for that. Um,
Yeah, and
uh,
I think, from what I'm understanding with my work with Osteopathy Australia is it sounds like what they call the new graduates, they call them early grad there's a word that
early
early
career
careers,
osteopaths.
that's the one. And again, like trying to give them this sense of identity. We've been around for ages. We've actually been around for so long. We've got so much content, and I feel like that the early careers haven't got that identity. It hasn't been placed yet. But I feel like if we bring it back and we make it more relevant today, and we can put it forward in a more modern way with complete respect, I think it makes their job easier. They're not overwhelmed coming out of uni. I feel like
Yeah,
a lot of new grads walk out so bloody scared and so overwhelmed, and
they don't know
and
what to
perhaps
do.
that's where I would want to see that done better. It's almost like if you're gonna teach, and I felt like I might have said this to one of the lecturers at the Osteopathy Australia conference. Can't remember. I said it should almost be mandatory that every time a lecture is started, that there are slides related to what AT Still or any of his students or anyone has said
Hmm.
first. And I feel like every time we start to regather some sort of reverence for who we are and why we are, and there are a lot of other people that came before us.
Mm,
And then they might then just want to go, who stated that? Like,
mm.
who's in their right mind saying crazy stuff about the fluids or the health or stuff that just sounds overly spiritual? But
Yeah. Well, it's
but
not
the
spiritual, you
spiritual
know.
part gets wiped out only because it's hard or scary to communicate. And I don't think that at all. Like I said, I've got this thing with the universe that brings the right people into my clinic at the right time, and things happen, mate. And
Yeah,
and and
but even things like, you know, the blood flow and arteries and, you know, like
100%,
that's not spiritual, you know, that's, you
yeah,
know,
hundred
like,
percent.
you know,
There's
like,
some,
yeah, it's, you know,
and the good osteopathy, the good texts I enjoy, they they sometimes don't even have reference to anatomy. It's in wonder and in awe, and sometimes it leaves you more with questions than answers.
yeah.
But I think it's healthy. So, look, I think that's where we need to go. I think the universities need to integrate more of it. It should be made mandatory at the head of most lectures, and I think we need to
Could you
speak in
imagine,
names.
Nicholas, we're at an osteopathy conference and a cardiologist is up there and he's about to speak and we put the rule of the artery supreme just before he speaks, you know, kind of
Correct.
like he'd have to have a look at that and go, well, there's something to that, you know, like, or
And
something to do with blood flow,
yes,
you know,
yeah,
which we've already discovered, and we're waiting for evidence-based medicine to catch up.
yeah,
And so, you know, yeah, that would be a great time in osteopathy.
I agree, and I think
That
it's
would
sort of.
make osteopathy great again.
Oh, I love that shirt. Do you sell them?
I'm about to. I am about to.
Good man.
they're getting. I'll be putting the link up on the website. I haven't. I've been just
You
gathering
want to run a
interest.
plug for your website again? That's a good time.
Just successinpractice.net, guys.
Yep.
Go over there and have a look. Keep an eye
Good.
out for the shirt,
Yeah.
and I'll post them all on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. You know, that's where all the hip people go on Instagram and buy stuff. Apparently,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I'll be there. I'll buy one. Don't worry.
All right, beautiful.
I'll buy one for the whole clinic. Actually, I'm in. But back to my point is, I think we need to, yeah, we need to bring some of that in. I think the other part is we need to collaborate with other allied health professionals, and a little bit of I think that's again what I'm trying to bring into the committee that I'm on with Osteopathy Australia. I think there are a lot. I'm going to say lots, but let's say use the word lots. I think there's lots of other allied health professionals that are in absolute awe of osteopathy,
Mm.
and
Well, that's
I
a
love discussing it with them.
that's a great segue, mate, into my next question. Tell us about your role with Osteopathy Australia. What's been your role there now? What are you doing with them?
Yeah, look, I'm on part of a committee that sort of looks after the social media content, making sure it's. I feel like trying to make it osteopathic, but obviously with APRA and their rules, we have to sort of bring it in every now and again.
Mm.
So there's three of us. We can do with a few more. So if anyone's interested, I think there might be a few more spots available. If anyone would like to help, we'd always love some more help. And then also trying to bring together some content with the Osteolife magazine as well.
Mm.
So yeah, it's good fun because you get to be able to keep your finger on the pulse with how we're expressing ourselves as a profession and where we need to head. But putting your 2 cents in, I think, is helpful, and being able to liaise with other osteopaths who are equally excited about
Mm.
osteopathy as well, and wanting to help. So
Adam, every now and then we're on the Osteopathy Australia page, or we see something pop up by Osteopathy Australia, and we, as osteopaths, you kind of sit there and look at it and go, has an osteopath seen this? You obviously you've
yeah,
seen some of the comments about some
yeah.
posts that
Look,
were up.
I feel like
Just
yeah.
explain the process and tell us what happens there and what who looks over things like that and why might something go wrong sometimes?
Look, only until recently, I'm going to say in the last 6 or 8 months, forgive me if I'm wrong with that date, but we've been given access to the social media calendar, and we can actually go through it and review what we believe is important or on trend, or if whether the wording needs to be reviewed. So there is a more seamless way. Again, that takes time out of my day. And I feel like I'm forever apologising that I haven't contributed in a while. But when I do, I like to jump on. I like to edit stuff, and that does get edited. Sometimes it probably doesn't come out as perfect. They have recently employed again a social media person to start to create some of that. So I think that's kind of good that they'll create some form of content. And it's up to us to refine that. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. Again, if anyone has a drama with it, we're happy to have another person on board that they can keep their computer open 24 hours a day and go through and review it. But
Mm,
yeah, I feel like a lot of not a lot of stuff was getting missed, um, in very infrequently though.
okay.
And I feel like, to Osteopathy Australia's credit, if anyone had an issue, they pop it on the forum and it'd probably be pulled down, and a soft little apology was given, and it's the best say we can do, and with the time that we've got.
And what's been some of the challenges there for you, mate? In terms of, I mean, I know you've got a large practice and you've built it from nothing. You know what it takes to
Yeah,
kind of. You seem like you're a doer, somebody that just wants to roll his
yeah,
sleeves
mate.
up and
Look,
get stuff done. What have been
you're
some of
right.
what have been some of your challenges there in terms of maybe getting things done? Like what have you found challenging there?
Look, again, it's probably a time thing. It's being able to get in there and being able to want to assert change. It's probably not the easiest thing to do, because then that has to go through the layers of of hierarchy to be able to ensure that. So I feel like maybe there's a little bit of restriction in being able to execute things as seamless as you would like. So and that's just what it is. So probably just the execution. I don't think there's been any big dramas. I feel like they've been pretty receptive to some things. I recently the Osteolife magazine had a few design based changes that I said I felt like it was getting a bit old, and again the next edition came out and it looked all reviewed and refreshed, and I feel like there's a better presentation to it. So yeah, no, mate, I feel like they could probably do with a few more hands on board, but it's just at the moment the best that they can pull, and we could have a few more osteos on board willing to kind of give their time as well. So it's maybe just a personnel, getting more personnel on board, but there's probably restrictions in regards to that. I could be wrong.
I saw that the podcast that Osteopathy Australia were running a little while ago kind of stopped for a while, and I think they've restarted it. And I think Stuart Hammond, one of my buddies, did a little podcast with one of the historians that was at the OA conference. And now I think there's been a couple of others that have done also a couple of episodes. Is that something that has, I guess, there's been changes in personnel and all that kind of stuff? Is that something that you guys or the Osteopathy Australia wants to leverage as a communication tool, or just
I think from what I understand from the discussions I've had, a lot of that wants to be around providing quality CPD. Right. So I'm pretty sure that it's more of a CPD tool at the moment. I would love to see our podcast leave it into more robust discussion about, who we are, all the stuff we've talked about, our identity, our connection perhaps to other, health professions. And I think bringing in other health professions to osteopaths and vice versa, I think breaks down some of those barriers. So that's the way I'd like to see it go. I think if we situate ourselves right, I feel like we're probably going to get a lot more connection with the allied health community. But again, it could just be a time thing, or trying to find the right person to lead that.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to the episode with Stuart, and Stuart's, like I said, one of my old buddies, and he had some good questions there for the guest. I think it's always good to have an osteopath asking other osteopath questions.
Yeah,
that's
most definitely.
You
can that might be something. And again, it's trying to balance me being on the sort of the social media or communication side. I'd love to, kill two birds with one stone. It's being able to put together some robust CPD that you can sit and listen in the car to, and contribute an hour or two a week just by listening to people talk, but also being able to pick some of that up and put our ideas and identity on our different social media pages. I think if you could merge the two together, you've got your CPD, you take snippets out of your podcast and be able to promote that via the Osteopathy Australia page. So I think it's just trying to harmonise the two, to be honest. But I think it's something that I haven't had much to do with, but who knows in the future.
Well, mate, I hope they don't get you to do something with it, because I was looking at the charts, and apparently I'm number 9 in health podcasts in Malaysia.
In Malaysia,
that's right. And
Malaysian
I definitely don't want to be looking over my shoulder if you take over that podcast, because
I'd love to.
But in all seriousness,
why Malaysia? What's happening?
I don't know. They just give you these random. I don't know. I really don't know. No, number 9 in health podcasts. So it's not all podcasts. It's
Yeah.
like it's really weird. They give you these ratings about different areas and places, and
Yeah.
so I don't know, but yeah, there was a few others that don't come to mind at the moment, but it was pretty
Mm.
funny looking at it. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
in all seriousness, I think it's good that they. I mean, it's better that they have an osteopath asking other
Yeah.
osteopath questions. It's better they
Yeah.
have an osteopath asking other allied health professionals questions
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
think there's a lot of good brains out there, and I think osteopaths also probably need to be seen at the forefront of communicating with other health professionals, other specialists.
mm,
The OA conference was really good. Even looking at the concussion expert that got up there, his name's lost me, but there was some really good stuff in that field. So I think we need to broaden our horizons again. Talking about concussion, mate. Sorry to take a rabbit hole here, but just while I think of it, I think concussion is a huge component or field, and again, probably being underdone in different medical or allied health fields. I feel like personally, I've had success treating concussion using all different forms of models of osteopathic care, but I, I think it's a huge opportunity for us to lean into the wonderful work that's been done in the cranial field. You cop a knock on the head, and all of a sudden people go, "Oh, I don't know." And there's osteopathic theory and philosophy around how the head can either be lesioned or traumatized, and then we could potentially, treat it. And that's just not the bone, but it's the underlying CSF and other lesions that can be held. So,
mm,
I would like to see concussion done a little bit more, and I think they're doing it. It was great to see that professor, again, the name's lost me, but there was some really good stuff that come out of the OA conference. And again, credit probably to them in moving and shifting with the times and seeing that there are opportunities there. Probably the biggest sports injury that no one knows how to treat yet, I'd say.
yeah, I think there's been also the profession itself. I think it comes from the ground up. There's been a lot of especially with the involvement, I think, with osteopaths down in Melbourne amongst sports teams.
Mm,
It's kind of brought concussion to our profession, and then we very quickly realised that there was a lot there that we could offer.
yeah,
And there's a lot of people that kind of understand that space quite well within
yeah,
osteopathy, and
mm,
the osteopathic philosophy and thought process lends itself to figuring out these complex problems, and putting together a holistic strategy for
yes.
trying to sort these out because they're never straightforward. They're
No.
never straightforward.
Oh, they're complex, and
Yeah.
again, that's where you need your team around you. You need um, teams of people either in your clinic or outside the clinic to be able to treat these complex presentations. And concussion's no different to that. I'm seeing lots of good changes with an optometrist doing lots of really good visual stuff, changing people's symptoms. I think they need to be triaged in a psychological sense. So even the psychologists that we've got here, we're trying to open up some dialogue around the importance of, men's mental health, another underdone area, I think possibly as well. That, considering if maybe any of these male patients have played a contact sport, that perhaps if they're seeing a psychologist, has it been caused through head knocks or trauma? So I feel like mental health being underdone as a generalization, it's possibly, hypothetically created through head knocks and traumas. So I feel like you need your team behind you. Do I have all the answers? No. Do I have enough people around me to make some change? Yes. But I feel like osteopathic principles and ideas can start to influence these people and making them feel better. So I'd love to see a little bit of movement in that field.
Mm,
The other field I think which is emerging, and hence I'll enter where I'm trying to do some research. Uh, and I think it's important that we probably try and give back. So there's another thing I'm trying to do on the side with Gary Fryer as my mentor. So I catch up with Gary once a month. Again, I'd highly recommend it if Osteopathy Australia give you the ability to do that. I've never done research in my life
mm,
and wouldn't know. Well, I wouldn't know how to properly conduct it, but with the mentorship of Gary, I'm in the midst of trying to create some content around the gut
hmm
and how the gut influences our pain. So looking at the gut and being able to introduce ideas around food as a cause of chronic inflammation and the gut microbiome influencing chronic pain. And here we are, pushing shit uphill trying to treat patients that have got chronic inflammation. So I've spoken to Gary and said I just don't think AT still was working against this chronic inflammation that was created by our food,
Yeah.
our overly processed food. And I think it's something that we need to account for as people that are infatuated with people getting better, but making sure that we can account for pain. We've done it in terms of introducing movement and exercise and knowing how important that is in
Hmm.
helping people's pain. We've done it in a language or in an interpretation sense where we're understanding people's pain processes, acknowledging their pain, what they know and don't know, and how that influences their pain. But I think we need to introduce some gut stuff and asking patients about what they eat. I don't think that's a hard thing to do. I think we get some fundamental stuff from uni around our nutrition, but it doesn't really link into pain. So I think it's an emerging field. I would love to say soon I'll have something out to the osteopathic community that might lead to bigger things, but
Yeah.
hopefully trying to address some stuff there.
Good, mate. You're doing a lot there, which is good. So good luck with that. We'll
Thanks.
make sure you keep us up to date on that because I
Yeah.
think that's something that would be. I mean, it's definitely interesting to me. And yeah, you're right. AT still probably didn't have a lot of these chronic inflammatory conditions that are food mediated that he had to deal with,
Yep.
and the healing process, the self-regulatory process, would have
Yeah.
been a lot easier in those days
100%.
given
100%.
given the lack of chronic inflammation.
Yeah.
Um, and so, going back to your role with Osteopathy Australia,
Yeah.
um, what have you been able to gather in terms of, I guess, the efficiency of getting their strategic plan achieved? Like I know that they release a strategic plan usually every year.
Mm.
I've made comments in the past where we'd rather see a lot of strategic
Yeah.
execution, not just strategic planning.
Mm.
Do you think that the association has enough there to kind of implement what they want to do in the next? I know there's a lot of factors that go into it. It's not just about
Yeah.
them. There's a lot more stakeholders involved. But
Yeah.
but are we grabbing the bull by the horns? Is that place moving and shaking down there, or do you think that
Look, I'm probably not the right person to ask, mate. I'm one part of a small committee. I feel like we can gently just do enough to make some form of an impact.
right?
I'm not sure. We've probably referenced the strategic plan at some point. You're probably more over it than I am, mate.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know. I can't. Yeah, I have probably can't comment too heavily. Not because I don't want to. It's just because
Yeah, fair enough.
I feel like I'm a small part of a bigger wheel, mate, and I probably haven't got depth that you're after there.
Yeah. Well, speaking on that, I think as we record tonight, a few hours ago, there's been a call um, for a board director's position that's up for grabs. I
Yeah,
think Don
yep,
Hunter's finishing
seen
his
that.
term. Don Hunter's
Yep,
finishing his term, and
yeah,
and there's been a call out for people to nominate them or be nominated for a board position.
yeah.
I would encourage people to do that. I think that's a really good
Oh,
thing to
most
do.
definitely. Yep,
I would also encourage Osteopathy Australia to hopefully make their election process a lot more transparent than what it's been in the past. Um, I've had this conversation with Matt Cooper, who's the president,
yep.
and I hope to get him back on here and have a chat to him, hopefully before the elections.
Mm,
I'd like to see, and I know other people have said the same thing, that the people who are employed by the organisation shouldn't be running the elections. Um, uh, I mentioned that. I think we can do better than using SurveyMonkey as the election kind of uh, tech piece of tech that we use to do the election. I think we can do a lot better than that for
Hmm.
probably not a whole lot more money. But I think transparency is important in the election process. We've had the same CEO for almost 25 years now, and so I don't know if that's healthy in most organisations. And I guess the only way that we can keep that accountable is to have fresh board members on there that
Mm.
keep looking at things with a fresh eye and making sure that we make sure that the profession is always looked after.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I want to speak to Matt soon and try to get him on there
Yeah, great idea.
and have a chat to him. Also, the reason why I'm mentioning this is that if people do decide to nominate or be nominated, um, please reach out to me because I want to get you on the podcast. If you're somebody who wants to be a
Yeah,
board
great idea.
member, come onto
Mm.
the podcast. I'm happy to do if there's 4 or 5 nominees, we'll get on here and we'll have a chat and we'll see where your positions are on things.
Yeah.
We'll see if you're happy for things to kind of just keep going the same way as they are, and for you to kind of just I guess if you're content with that, or if you're somebody who wants to, change directions
Mm.
and offer maybe a fresh perspective and different ideas
Yeah.
than what's been implemented. But no matter what, this is a free forum. I don't really restrict people's speech or, tell them what they can and can't say.
Yeah, of course.
And so, yeah, just a call out to people who may want to be on that board. Reach out to me. I'll have you on the podcast before the elections, and we'll make sure that goes to air before the elections. And you can state your position, tell people why you're the right candidate, what you'd like to do, and give you that particular forum. So, mate, Adam, if you decide you want to have a go, buddy, you're more than welcome to come on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I'll
and
have a go.
hopefully that'll keep you off the podcasting, and I can stay number 9 in Malaysia. Hello, everyone. Just a quick break to give you some information on where to best find me. The first place is the private Facebook group called the Successful Practitioner Pathway. I've set up this private group as a place where practitioners can go and get tips and advice on how to best accelerate their practice and improve their clinical practice skills. The second place to find me is at successinpractice.net. That is where the Success in Practice signature program is housed. You can find more information about me and how I can best help you achieve success in your practice. So, the two best places, the private Facebook group, the Successful Practitioner Pathway, and successinpractice.net. I will link to both those places in the show notes. So, for more information, please see the show notes. Now, enjoy and back to the show.
Look, eventually, I'd love to set up a podcast. It probably will, but I do. I'm passionate about doing many things, and at the moment, my big struggle is time, and
Yeah.
trying to manage all the wonderful things that I'm trying to either create with osteopathy, with trying to teach, trying to learn, trying to jump on podcasts like yourself,
Yeah.
trying to be involved. It's a big balance, and
Yeah, it
and
is.
and probably the
And
biggest
family and
challenge.
kids, and you got to all do all that
Yeah,
too,
trying to be a good dad, trying to be a good husband, and
Yeah.
give to everyone, with your sliver of time that you donate to everyone,
Yeah.
and trying to make sure you've done a good enough job, mate. So yeah, it is something
Well, that's
that
why
we are trying
that's
to.
why also that I'm quite passionate about making sure that we have a professional organisation, an association that looks at, I guess, even protecting what we discussed earlier about the history of what we do.
Yeah,
I know that the landscape is kind of moving all in the one direction. We're all kind of being riding on this wave of in the same direction as physios and ex-physios and chiropractors, and we'd like someone there at Osteopathy Australia to say, "Hey, this is exactly how we're different," and to
correct.
make that point, because the
Yep.
point of difference is your biggest marketing ally,
Yeah.
um, and
Yep.
so that's why I'm passionate about making sure that the right people are there on the board, and also
Yep.
in the trenches inside that building at Osteopathy Australia,
Yeah.
and they're not just there to kind of maintain the status quo, that they're there to make sure that the interests of osteopathy are kind of really fought for. I think the
Yeah.
landscape's changed at the moment. I think maybe about 15 years ago, they probably needed a good systemized association that needed to transform from being something that was, run on paper to something that was a lot more uh, systems and operations focused. But
Mm.
I really feel now that we're at a stage in the profession where there's been this massive tidal wave towards taking us all in the same direction, and somebody's got to put the brakes on and say, "Hey, we're osteopaths. We're not physios. We're not chiros. We're not ex-physios.
Yeah,
This is exactly what we do, and this is exactly who we are." And
yeah.
and go all
And
in on
wearing it with
that.
a bit more pride,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think, where do we see ourselves moving into the future? I think we have to start shoring up our own identity.
yeah,
And
definitely.
one of my, Michael Solano told me, he said, when I'm gone, I think osteopaths will be specialists in their field. And I think we are. I think we're unique. We just have to believe it. I think we've got something really, really cool to do and help and
Mm,
deliver with our patients. And I think if we can believe that we are amazing, I think we'll feel a shift in who we are and how we do our thing. And it's important to believe, and again, it's important to go back and just respect our heritage and who we are, and it's there. It's there, and it's exciting, and it's relinquishing if you do have difficult patients to treat. But I think the other part is that, again, growing this bond with other allied health professionals who are just amazed with some of the work we do,
mm,
especially in the pregnancy field. We have a lot of midwives that refer to us, and they're in awe of how we understand the nuances of the pelvis and the sacrum
mm.
and the lumbars and the hips and how we approach them, and the outcomes that we get in terms of pain and delivery and birth outcomes. It's beautiful, and
Yeah,
to be
what do you
able to.
think? What do you think's taught us that though, Adam? It's not the body of literature that's out there on PubMed and Google Scholar, right?
Yeah, no. I think I think it's experience. I think we have to lean into trusting to using our hands and respecting that. Again, I think, like we started the podcast, I think first day, first week, we were doing some practical hands-on stuff,
Mm.
and that forever grows. It's like, I explain to patients sometimes, they're like, "Well, what do you mean you can feel this or do this?" I said, "Look, have you ever seen a sommelier? Do you know what a sommelier is?"
The guy that smells the wines, right?
Yeah, they taste the
And
wines,
taste and
right?
taste the wines. Well, they tend to smell them first.
Smell and taste. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
And so a sommelier is very capable of interpreting and reading the nuances of a wine.
Oh,
Now,
they
no
could they
one.
could they could tell you what region of what country and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what
So there's
mountain
actually.
and what humidity and climate and all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a sommelier, then there's a master sommelier, right? And these people go through and they do their own study about smelling and tasting wines. And you're right, to get from a sommelier to a master sommelier, they do a blind tasting. They give them a glass of wine, a few
Yeah.
glasses, and they have to assess it. Assess this wine and tell me where it's from, the
Yeah.
conditions, everything, almost to like where I think they identify the vineyard it was from
Yeah.
in the year it was made. It's incredible, right? Like, no one questions these people because they've studied it, but they're using a certain sense that they've they've repetitively used over and over. They've built a
Mm.
catalog of remembering and ideas, the nuances within every single wine in the world, and they can near pick it.
Yeah.
And I feel like osteopaths have a excelled sense of perception and palpation that we use every day, and I think that's important. And am I at the top yet? No. Does anyone ever think they're top? In the humble opinion of most osteopaths, they're the most humble profession in the world? No. But I think we have certain elements of skills that, and I love wine for the fact that I love taking my time to diagnose it. There are new, and coffee's the same. Take your
Mm.
time with coffee. Like with a black coffee, and take your time to understand the coffee as well. So so again, taking that rabbit hole, I think no one questions a sommelier when they tell you what type of wine it is, and I think if we back ourselves and know what we can do in terms of understanding the nuances or dysfunctions or lesions or health within the body, I think we could back ourselves a fair bit more, and we can do something brilliant with it.
Yeah, we definitely can. And like I said, I'd like to see a profession that I guess is represented at that level,
Yeah.
that we have some kind of, I was talking to Phil Austin a few weeks back, and his take on it was that if you get 10 different osteopaths in a room, they'll tell you 10 different things.
Mm.
Right. And I guess, I mean, there's an argument to be made there that if you do that, how are you going to agree on what osteopathy is, right? But
But the beauty is that we can all practice it different as long as we've got fundamental
well, even at the
knowledge.
fundamental level, though,
Yeah.
it's again, that's his argument is that even at the fundamental level, we might have disagreement, and that's okay. The thing is, for me, science and what we do is not about consensus. It's just about the facts that are out there,
Yeah.
and for me, that fourth principle rings true that osteopaths practice on osteopaths apply rational treatment based on the above three principles.
Yeah.
Like, AT still going back to, we have this argument amongst osteopaths. And then,
Mm.
like you said, all we have to do is go back in history. The answer's there. He tells
Completely.
you exactly what an osteopath is. An osteopath
Yeah.
is somebody who uses those first three principles and
Yeah.
treats rationally based on those first three principles. Like, you don't
Yeah.
have to redefine it. You don't have to add things or minus things from it. Now,
No.
whatever technique you want to be direct, you want to be indirect, you want to use MET, you want to use HVLA, you want to use whatever kind of, dry needling. You can bring all these
Yeah.
tools into it, but the thought process behind it has been
Yes.
he defined what an osteopath was.
Yeah.
It didn't leave it to open interpretation. So I'm not sure
No.
why we're having an art or a discussion or a debate about it.
Mm.
And then what I find is that debate degenerates to is that instead of attacking the argument, they attack the man. And this is the conversation I had with Lisa Di Stefano on the weekend.
Yeah. Good
Is
point.
that when they can't attack the argument, they attack the man, and it shows weakness in the actual point of view. And so when you start to attack AT still as just a relic of the past, is this, wacko Christian that talked about spirituality and all this kind of nonsense. He didn't have MRIs, he didn't have CT scans, he didn't have all this stuff. How the hell is he supposed to kind of know what we know today? We're so far superior, and yet he's still lecturing us and teaching us. Every
Yeah.
time you open up his book, he's kicking our ass. Like
Yeah.
every time I open up a book, or I've got these old papers that are still in my notes, and every time I read them, it's like he's taking me to class every single day. And
Correct.
and uh, and yeah, I don't think he's behind his time. I think he's well ahead of not his time, but our time too. I think we're
Yeah.
still catching up to some of the thoughts that he had. And just to put the perspective on this, I mean, I haven't probably had an original idea since I graduated. I really haven't had an original idea. I haven't come up with anything that's not mine, that's mine, sorry, about osteopathy.
No.
Everything that I've discovered
No.
about it there's somebody down the track has kind of said,
Someone
oh,
came
yeah,
before.
someone
Someone
came
came
before.
before,
That's right.
and the idea is that they're communicating it incredible. Like
Yeah.
they are. They're so ahead of their time. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think if we can, interpret and bring it in and be at the head of every lecture, mate, I think we find who we are,
Yeah.
and it organically, maybe the universe fixes itself, and that's
Well,
where else.
universe is the beginning of the word university. So I'd like to see the universities kind of jump on board
Ooh,
and
yes,
have a little bit more of that. I mean, you
yeah,
talked about Gary Fry, your mentor in research. I mean, Gary's he understands the history. I mean, he's been to Kirksville, he's studied it, he knows well and true what that's all about.
mm-hmm,
I'd
correct,
I'd like to see that put into the curriculum that
yeah,
that Gary is a part of. And to
yes,
his credit, I had a chat to him at the conference on the sidelines of the conference, and he's said that he's making some changes at VU this
Yeah,
year around, and
fantastic.
I don't know exactly what they are. If he'd like to come back on and have a chat to me about it, I'd love to talk to him.
Yes.
But so yeah, that we want to see that in the students,
Yes.
and we don't. If you want to attack, you want to attack the man, go for your life. But he's gonna school you, like attack the argument, no problems. You can attack the argument, but if you attack the man,
Yes.
like you're gonna get schooled. And
Yes.
it's he's made it very clear what an osteopath is. And every
Yeah.
time I ask osteopaths the same question, I'll ask you the same question. If
Mm.
irrevocably, I should say, don't have a go. I mean, I'm a wog. I'm a immigrant, I should say. We come to the same answer. When I ask an osteopath, what is osteopathy? They kind of talk to me for a couple of minutes and they come back to the principles.
Yeah.
They always, the osteopaths that are doing well in private practice and doing all this
Yeah.
wonderful things, they all come back to principles. And if I
Look,
asked
and
you the same thing, Adam, you'd probably
yeah,
go back to principles
and
too.
he's made it easy for us. He's the blueprint sits there. So I question, and I don't know if one of the questions is, where success come from. I'm like listening to some of these principles, applying them, and being a good osteopath. Like, I know
We're just
it's called
honestly applying them.
success. Yes, s- you know, but that success should come from practicing osteopathy really well. And
Yeah.
and I don't know if there's any trick. What we don't have a
No,
trick.
no,
We
there's
don't.
no
I don't
trick.
have to go and. I don't know. I have to go and send emails out to people and say, please come and see us and please come and do this. It's be a good practitioner.
Mm.
Don't be a dick. Listen to people. And somewhere in the midst of that, you apply your principles and your ideas
Yeah.
around how to help someone. There is new evidence moving, and you can immerse that in amongst your treatment, and
Mm.
and it's great. It's fantastic. And I still see. I was just counting. I'm seeing 47 patients this week. I treated about 40-minute consults, and I'm addicted. I love what I do, and if you can keep finding practitioners that are addicted to treating their patients, hopefully getting good results, mate. Like, you know, the answer's somewhere in that. And I think perhaps, coming back to maybe who our board is or who our university lectures are, that they should show the same zest for life or
Yeah.
zest for
Yeah.
osteopathy. And that should be a bloody prerequisite. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, definitely. I've had this conversation too. It's like, when a representative from the professional association goes to the universities, are they
Mm,
are they just tapping them on the back and saying, "Good job"? Look at these graduates coming out. They know nothing about principles. Fantastic job. Or are they actually sitting down and
correct.
having a chat to them and say, "Hey, listen, thank you for the course. Thank you for
Yeah.
being here, but
Yeah.
the quality that we're seeing coming out of the course is there's some of these things are lacking." And as a professional association, we have a clear vision of what osteopaths should be, and some of these graduates are not coming out within
Yeah.
that vision. And
Well,
what are you doing about it?
Well,
Is that
we're coming out as a hybrid of other professions because we don't know our own
yeah?
identity. It's
And
like, look, I'm not a fan of dry needling, but is sticking needles deep into people's muscles osteopathy? No, I don't think so. Can it work? Yeah, I've seen it work. But
mm,
should we use it? Yeah, I think we should use it. But you've
that's not
got
the
some
point.
osteos not identifying all the wonderful things you can do. So
Yeah,
they do 5 years at uni and a 2-day dry needling
mm,
course, and then go and stick everyone with needles. Mind you, have got acupuncturists who have spent the same amount of time, and they're having their course or their profession bastardized doing that,
mm,
sticking needles in with no respect, a lack of interpretation or intent.
mm.
The nuances that are involved, I think, are making us look silly in front of acupuncturists.
Well, yeah, it's a tool in the toolbox, and I think we focus on the tool at the expense of the actual thought process as to what's going on.
Yeah,
Right. We don't want to. We shouldn't be focused on the tool. You got to be good on the tools.
yeah,
You got to be good with whatever technique that you choose to use, and once you become good at them, you'll understand their limitations as well, right? Like, you know,
But we're also and part of um, thinking a little bit critical about where we're boxing ourselves in as osteopaths is that we're we're not just musculoskeletal.
mm,
Again, going back to the stuff that Still and his students were treating, it wasn't just lower back pain.
no,
He was treating conditions that were wide and varied, and I think we need to come back to some of those. It might be scary. It might be the people that don't know how to eloquently teach it or approach it, but again, we might have to rip the band-aid off and go back there and stop boxing ourselves into being musculoskeletal
mm,
practitioners as well. So,
yeah.
thinking of it now, I think that could be hindering us.
Well, I think the scary part
It's
to that
safe. It's
is
really safe to practice musculoskeletally.
it is safe, but the scary part about it is that, there's a perception out there that we don't have the evidence base to be able to, treat anything outside of our musculoskeletal framework. And so, the stakeholders,
Yeah,
when we say
yeah,
stakeholders, we really mean the professional association, the universities, the councils,
yeah,
the accreditation the boards, and they're all the stakeholders. And us as
yeah,
osteopaths, we're stakeholders too.
yeah.
And
Correct.
it looks like that those stakeholders, especially the ones that are kind of responsible towards regulatory frameworks, they don't want to go down anything outside of musculoskeletal because they feel like that they can't justify it without the evidence.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, and so that's the hard
Mm,
part. I get the
mm,
hard part. I really understand it,
yeah, yeah.
but Ann Cooper said something that was quite interesting when we talked about this. She remembers sitting down and talking to people at the university when she taught at UWS and said that, well, we treat asthma. And they said to her, you can't say that. You can't say we treat asthma. You don't have the evidence for it. And then
Mm,
she said, all right, play your game. That's fine. So we treat the symptoms of asthma. She said it's the same shit. We,
yeah,
we can help with the symptoms of asthma. And so that could be a way around it. We don't have to say that we treat,
yeah.
you know,
And I get it. And this is where, you walk this line between, putting stuff out there on social media that APRA could reprimand you for. And again, I feel for Osteopathy Australia trying to having to walk that line every day and trying to be appropriate for osteopaths, well, on behalf of osteopaths, but also to the potential patients that might want to use us. So, and
mm,
look, in saying that, each osteopath might not feel comfortable with treating certain exact conditions, and that's the other thing is that some people are happy to treat pregnancy, and someone's never treated it before in their life. For
yeah,
pelvic floor conditions, headaches, talking about concussion, it's a lot to get your head around
mm,
in terms of its presentation, its diagnosis, and then its treatment. So lots of nuance within what we're trying to say, but I think it's important that we start going back to fundamentals.
yeah. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem understanding the point of view that I mentioned earlier about, I guess, the fear behind non-musculoskeletal is that, we don't have the evidence base to make certain claims. But it's not about just kind of it's not about, I guess, not making certain claims. It's just about
Mm,
the absence of regulations. So what I mean by that is that, well, you don't have to, as an association, for example, you could position yourself as a musculoskeletal kind of profession, but
mm,
don't say that we don't do other things. Like you don't have to go out of your way and say, look, we don't treat this or we don't treat that or that's out of our scope of practice. We definitely, like you don't have to say that. And if each individual practitioner or each individual osteopath wants to market themselves
yeah,
to say that, I treat, I'm good with gut issues,
yeah,
with reflux and
yeah,
irritable bowel and
yeah,
whatever gut issues you want to present with. This is what I do as an osteopath.
yeah,
And I can help with X, Y, Z, or I may help with X, Y, Z, as long
yeah,
as you comply with the regulatory framework. I think
yeah,
people need to get out of your way.
Yes.
Associations, universities
Yep.
need to get out of your way.
Yeah, I hear what you're
And,
saying.
and
Yeah.
even and even
No, I
other
like some of that
professionals,
forward.
even
You're spot on.
yeah, even other osteopaths. Like if there's an osteopath out there and they're treating some things that are a bit outside the box, and you get wind of it, don't get your knickers in a knot. You know, don't get your knickers in a knot. Like calm down. Don't be a Karen about it. Oh, such and such is saying that they can do this and they can do that. Well, let them go. Like, what? Why are they hurting you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
because they're misrepresenting the profession. Well, who made you the referee in this situation? Like
Correct.
I think if people want to, as long like I said, as long as they comply with the regulatory framework, they don't make claims that I guess can't be substantiated based on the regulator. And I think the regulator, that's another conversation. I think
Yeah.
there's some issues there, but
Mm.
um, in terms of advocacy, definitely as an association of professionals, we want to understand what osteopathy is philosophically and
Mm.
as a thought process, and then
Mm.
let osteopaths just go and practice.
Yeah.
But we need to
Yeah,
get that. We need to get that
maybe
down pat. You know.
maybe you should get someone from the regulator on and pose some of these interpretations to them and see how it goes down.
Yeah, I've
That's not a
approached.
bad idea.
I have approached people in regulation. I think their position, their response with that was that their position refrains them from doing something like this in case they
Uh-huh.
say something that they don't.
Yeah.
And look, the osteopathy board is made up of osteopaths.
Mm.
They're not professional politicians. They
Yeah.
don't. They don't have that in them to kind of duck and weave.
Yes.
And so yeah, I get that. That's fine. But if somebody out there is listening in regulation
Yeah.
land and you want to come on, you want to contact me, definitely. But I will keep trying to get someone from regulation on here
Good on you.
and see where we can go with that. Mate, I was going to ask you in the final question where you'd like to see osteopathy go in the next 10 years, but I think you've pretty much discussed a lot
Yeah,
of
I
it.
think I think I just I want to see us just as a stronger, more unified. I feel like we are unified. I think we have our soft struggles in the background.
Yeah, I think
I think that's starting.
we are unified in terms of like we all understand each other's kind of that each of us is struggling, and I get that. And I think peer to
Mm,
peer, it seems like there's a lot of osteopaths like to help people, and they definitely like to help other osteopaths. And so every
mm,
time I see things on the forums, and people are always very helpful with things,
yeah,
but I think where we need to unify is not so much in that. Like together, we're all pretty nice people, I think, but we need to unify in terms of our vision for what
yeah,
osteopathy is. I don't think we have that.
yep,
We don't have a position statement on this is who we are
mm,
and this is what we believe, not what we do, because what we do differs,
yes,
right? This is who we are and this is what
mm,
we believe, right?
yeah,
And and that's a hard thing to do. Who we are is probably one thing. What we believe is going to be a very difficult thing because
mm,
it's going to have to ask people to take positions without okay, I'm going to go on a limb. It's going to be a position based on faith, right? And what
yeah,
I mean by that, I'm not talking about your particular religious beliefs, but
yeah,
it's based on faith because in the absence of the evidence, and the evidence isn't on our side because each patient is different to us. We can't
mm,
do trials that that I guess pick out what we do and have that body of evidence there. We have to
mm,
go back to our roots, as you discussed, Adam. We got to go back to
yeah,
the history of what osteopathy
correct,
is, and
yeah,
this is what we believe as osteopaths. This is what we believe we do.
yep,
And,
yeah, and I think it unlocks potential for our new graduates, and it unlocks who we are. I feel like, and um, yeah, moving forward, I would like to see that happen. We might have a few restraints around that and how that happens, but like I
well,
said, I
no
think
one's
getting on a
tackled it.
point,
This is the issue I
yeah,
have is that no one's tackled
but
it. No one wants to
yeah,
tackle it.
but having open forums like this that people can listen in, people can probably go, yeah, that's how I feel. I just didn't know how to
Mm.
express it, or someone else needed to express it. I think it's important that we start identifying who we are from our history,
Yeah, we
and
need to
not
know who we are and what we
yeah,
believe, and we need to have somebody actually tackle that. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think the regulators are going to tackle it for us. That's not in their interest. What would they care?
No.
The
No.
universities definitely are going to help us out. I mean, they're just there to sell courses. And so it's up to us. Everything that's good ever come good out of
Mm.
osteopathy has always come from osteopaths,
Yeah.
you know? And even as an association, Osteopathy Australia, it's not like it's going to come from the top down, as much as I'd like to
Mm.
see better leadership there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not talking in terms of the board. I'm talking in terms of the actual association. Anything good that's ever come for osteopathy has always come from the ground up. You know, anytime we've had a course that's launched in Melbourne, Sydney, Queensland, and the new one I think in the West, it's always been osteopaths on the ground from the ground up, getting things going. You know,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
we really have to pull our pants up and take that responsibility on.
Yeah. Well
Um,
said.
and so yeah, I'd like, but no one's tackling it at the moment, and we can't market ourselves until we know these things. It's
Mm.
like you as a business owner, it's really hard to run your marketing campaigns to get patients in if you don't know your values, if you don't know what you believe in and who you are.
Correct.
And so
Yeah. Correct.
I don't know why that would be different for an association of professionals. So we need to get our act together.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
All good points, mate. And look, I'd be intrigued to see, what type of traction, what this lights up in some of your listeners, mate, and
Well,
see if
these are the
this type of
conversations.
communication resonates.
Yeah.
And it's important because enough of us beating a drum, that drum gets louder, and we can start to direct a few things. And that feedback, I'm sure OA would be happy to hear what people's opinions are. Look, again, I feel like that to kind of support what they do. I feel like that they are trying to communicate with a lot of their members through different ways, and they get a lack of feedback as well.
Mm,
So, like it's not like they're not trying or not trying to listen. To hear the feedback that they get out of
yeah.
years in communications, it's a pretty small take up. So again, we all want to think we're either too busy or too much happening. But again, comment on things through different forums, like write to them and tell them, and start
Mm,
steering it, because if we all sit on our hands and don't speak up, and partly my passion here, and hopefully you've heard that in the podcast, is that if we don't talk up, we're going to get chewed up, mate, and,
yeah.
and it'll be a real shame if we all just merge into one big blurry musculoskeletal
Oh,
bloody.
we're a small fish in a big pond, so we'll definitely get chewed up. You know, there's no doubt
Mm,
about that. And you're
mm,
right in what you're saying, and I think you're right there. Definitely. I mean, the communication. It's not like from a lack of listening. You know,
no,
so I get that bit, and
yeah,
I guess you know, most osteopaths are kind of busy with their practices and their families
it
and
is.
doing things. I get that. I totally get that too.
Yeah.
But I think that's also why there needs to be a bit of a change there. Personally, my personal opinion, I think it's time for an osteopath to be head of Osteopathy Australia.
Mhm.
You know, I think it's, and we will put someone in charge of that organisation. They need to be an
Mm.
osteopath because sometimes they don't get feedback, and that particular person has to go, well, you know, this is where we need to go.
Yeah, sure.
We understand that understands osteopathy. You know,
Mm.
that's not gonna, I guess, sell us short.
Yes.
And defend really who we are and what we believe in.
Yeah.
And it takes that passion. Like you're an osteopath, I'm an osteopath. We're having a
Yeah.
conversation about it. We're both clearly passionate about it, right? And so
100%.
when you have somebody at that in that position who's passionate about it too,
Yeah.
it's gonna get done.
Yeah, I agree.
If there's something
I
in your
agree.
business, Adam, that you want to get done, mate, you're laser focused on it, and you that's it. You know, everyone.
Oh, at the
You,
end of the day, we want to help people, and
yeah,
it's not quirky. It's not a sales tactic. People get better, they leave, they tell more people.
yeah,
Like so if people go, "Well, what'd you do? What'd you sell? What's your marketing?" No, we have a few Facebook things here and there, and that's about it. But
mm,
there's no weird tack to it. It's be a good osteo and help people, and work hard.
yeah,
There is a component. You've got to turn up for your patients every day, but
mm,
practicing good osteopathy doesn't make you tired. It makes you reinvigorated.
Yeah, good point.
So I think when you have good forms of practice that are true, you are going to feel inspired every bloody day that you come in.
Mm.
And so I feel like that's the most sustainable model, not having, new graduates saying, I'm burnt out. It's because you haven't understood good ways of helping people. And that's easy on your body or mind and giving that point of difference that you can allow that patient's body to get better rather than you trying to do it through your, you're trying to wrestle them with your hands on. And then at the end of the day, you go, why am I so tired? It's because you've been wrestling people all day.
Yeah.
So finding out more sustainable forms of practice that's easy, and we keep more of these early careers. I keep saying new graduates, early careers in the profession. They understand, they got purpose, they got drive, they got motivation. Mate, we'll kick down walls in this profession if we can just keep everyone in, and it's not a hard blueprint.
No, it starts with understanding, like you said, who we are, what we believe in, and if that permeates through our education, it gets to the new grads that are coming out, and we get them there, and they won't burn out because they'll know what they're doing. They'll at least have a belief in it. They're not going to get everything right. New grads don't get everything right straight away, but they'll have that belief that they will get there, and they will get there.
100%.
Anyway, mate, it looks like we could probably keep talking about this for a little while, but it's probably time to wrap it up. Thanks for joining me tonight. Stay on the line with me, but for everybody else, thank you to Adam. Before I go, though, I will make out another call if anybody's interested in a board position at Osteopathy Australia. As of recording this, it's they've just announced an open position, and if you want to be on the board and you want to be nominated, do that. And then contact me and come on the show and state your position, what you want to do, where you'd like to see the profession go. I'll ask you some questions. I'll be polite and, ask it very nicely, but we'll have a nice discussion like me and Adam had tonight, and hopefully give people an understanding of what your positions are on things, because we'd like to know, we'd like to know that about the board that's driving the profession. And so, if anybody wants to do that, contact me and we'll do that. And for everyone, have a good evening. Adam, thank you for joining me. Stay on the line.
Thanks for having me, and make osteopathy great again.
Make osteopathy great again. We'll definitely get that up on the site. Go to successinpractice.net and you'll find that, and you can buy that, and I don't know how much they are, and work that out, but definitely. All right, everyone. Good night, Adam. Thanks,
buddy. Guys.
All right.
See you, mate.
Bye.